Candidates for the two available positions we have for the forthcoming election. We are going to maybe a little housekeeping right now up front before we start. First, we would ask that if you'd be so kind to keep down your crosstalk. What we are doing is we're recording this evening, and sometime in the next several days, this will be posted to the website. We are not going to live stream this event because while you probably would have gotten somewhat slightly better food at your own homes, we want people to be here to ask questions. So thank you for your participation, and we do encourage your participation. Just so you know, the agenda tonight will have each of our candidates will have 5 minutes to do a self-introduction, and we're going to only do that time. Then we'll offer Q&A from the audience. We ask that your questions be limited to broad questions, not so much your specific issue. Can you bury Aunt Tilly in your backyard? That's an individualized question. We're looking, hopefully, to be asking the candidates broader questions about the operation of our association and how they envision their role and how the organization should move forward. Also, I would like to ask that if anybody who is not serving currently on a committee, one of the best ways to help our association be productive and be high quality and be representative of all 1,400 of our residents is to have active committees. We do have committee sign-up sheets right over there. We're going to ask if you would please give consideration to being involved if you're interested enough to be here this evening or here watching this. Then hopefully you're interested enough to serve on a committee and help your homeowners association. This is not the time for questions to the board. What we do and what we have done is it can be an issue if you wish to ask the candidates about that, but the board is not here to field questions this evening. So we will not be responding to those questions specifically in that regard. I'd like to introduce first, if you guys have not met her, our LCAM, our association manager, Patricia Kahn. Patricia, you can wave at least so they know who you are. What she does is gleefully take all y'all's money, and but she also runs the operation here. We're very, very pleased and proud to have her. She's been with us now about 8 months, 9 months?
A year.
Just going on a year? Okay. So, and things have running so much smoothly with her expertise. She comes to us with a wealth of professional background. I'd also, we have several of our board members here. I introduced myself. I'm Stuart Hose. I'm the secretary of the board. In the back is Chuck Scales. He is our current president of the board. We have Susan Geller, who is a member of the board. Tony Violante, who is the vice president of the board. We do have Michael Richards, who is also up for election this time. He is currently the treasurer of the board. And we have Ron Bledsoe, who is a member of the board, and a current member of our board, Bob Pizzone, who is not seeking re-election. So this is, he's like here just to make sure he's going to be able to get out safely.
Gotta replace him.
However, we do have lighting. And I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge the members of the election committee who have worked very, very hard to put this election together. Loretta Bledsoe, Barb Dixon, Jovo Durick, Dottie Double, Shirley Johnson, Angela Vellante, and Susan Woodbury Scales. Without their help, this election would have not occurred. I cannot thank them enough. Also, one of the housekeeping note is that if you do have questions, Angela Violante has the microphone. We are asking that you wait until, once you're recognized to ask your question, that you give her a moment to get the mic to you. Again, it's important because recordings just do not work as well without a mic in front of you, and we want the questions to be heard by the audience that will listen to this event in the future. With that, what we're going to do is start with self-introduction. Yes, ma'am? What
You
about
might
you?
want to have everyone silence their cell phones.
Oh, silent cell phones. That's a good idea. Especially if you have teenagers. You don't want to hear from anyone. Yeah. And those of us who do not have teenagers anymore, we feel your pain. But very quickly, we do have our 5 candidates in alphabetical order, and that's the order we're going to go in. Terry Grimes, Michael Giroux, Randall Richards, Randy Rich, and Michael Richards and Joanne Wagner. We also, if you want to ask questions, when that time comes, please ask questions that are broad enough so that each panelist might have a moment to respond. We're going to ask the panelists to keep their responses to under a minute. So, and I will also control that time because we do want this to turn into a campaign activity for one individual. We want to have an equitable amount of time for everybody. And with that, we're going to start with Terry. Ms. Grimes, go ahead and do yourself introduction. Up close to you.
Before you start, as a courtesy to all of us, would you give us a 4-minute wave so we know we have 1 minute left?
Oh, trust me, I will definitely be doing that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Ms. Grimes, you go right ahead.
Okay, I didn't know I was going to have to go first, but there we go. My name's Terry Grimes. I live at 806 Fox Valley, which is right by the tennis court here. So I've been here for 26 years. I lived on Riverbend for a year, and before that I lived in Wekiva for 8 years. So I've been in the area for a long time. I'm a retired speech therapist. I worked for Seminole County Schools for 30 years, and before that in Leon County Schools in Tallahassee for 8 years. I have been served on the CRC committee, which is the Complaint Review Committee. I am now serving on the Appeals and Hearing Committee, the AHC Committee, and I also helped form a committee called the Natural Sweetwater Committee, which is a committee that educates the residents about the wildlife here and how to live safely among the wildlife. We also every year give an annual wildlife fair. The things that I am interested in, the reason why I want to be on the board is I feel like I can really help the community. I want to see us continue to improve, beautify, have more activities, be a family-oriented community. I want to continue to educate about the wildlife in our environment here. And I want to deal with some of the issues that I've seen online, like speeders, see if we could do something. I'm willing to work with the county in whichever way I can to try to see what we can do, either enlarge speeding signs or however we can do that. I also want better identification of people who are violating the covenants. My husband and I have been doing a lot of walking around the neighborhoods and have seen a lot of homes that should be written up who are in violation. Some of those homes are renters, so I'd like to see if we can have better regulations with renters so that they are responsible for keeping up their yard better. Also, I've heard concerns about the beach and that there are people using our beach who aren't from Sweetwater. Yes, there are people, if you're from Sweetwater and you have a friend with a boat, that's okay, as long as they're with a Sweetwater resident. There actually are boats coming from other communities that are on Lake Brantley. So I'd like to have a better way of identifying people who are from our community at the beaches and the amenities in Riverbend. I'd like to incorporate more native landscaping. which is now a big thing with the state of Florida. And I think it would be a lot easier to maintain for our maintenance crew and our landscaping crew if we did incorporate some of that. I want to continue to work towards having a bear-wise community and possibly getting cans, bear-resistant cans for the neighborhood. I would like more communication with the newsletter about, to remind people what the covenants are, and to help people who say that they didn't know about that and they don't take the time to go look it up, that we could remind them of things that we're seeing in violation that they need to be aware of. I'd like to get more people to join committees. That's a big thing. We don't have a lot of people wanting to be on committees, and we really need to try to get more people to join that and help with our community. I want our community to maintain its status of a great place to live in, and to continue to keep the values of our homes up. So that's a big concern of mine. And I think, and also playgrounds and restrooms, those are issues that I know the board's been working on. I'd like to continue with that. And possibly, this is just personal because I've been out walking, bike paths on this side of there are bike paths on the other side on Sweetwater Boulevard South. There are no bike paths over here on Riverbend, some of the main roads that I think if we had a bike path marked, that might deter some speeding, make it more safe.
Thank you. Next, Michael Roth.
Okay, Mike.
Mike, I'm sorry.
That's okay. The election packet that everyone got in the mail included profiles for all of us. Did anyone not get my profile? Because I have some spares here and I'd be happy to share them if you didn't get one. Because I don't want to be redundant and just read from this or, waste people's time. I do need to make one correction on here. Our son was in Columbia, South Carolina with the State Museum as a curator there. And he was, this last semester, he was teaching also at the University of South Carolina, and he's leaving both and going to a job at Boeing in St. Louis now. So there's an update from my profile. Sorry about that.
Start sending you money.
Not soon enough. Not soon enough. So anyway, just that minor thing, I thought that might be of interest. When you my profile, when you look at it at a glance, there's a lot of personal background information on here, and I talk about our family a lot. The reason I did that was this is what can happen as residents of Sweetwater Oaks. We moved here when our son was in kindergarten in Altamont. We saw the school system that he was going into, and stupid young parents, the light bulb went off. Wait a minute, this ain't going to work. We got to move. So we started, shopping around like anyone else would, and settled on Sweetwater Oaks and moved here in '94. So, fast forward through the community. Missy and I can't take credit for this. We have no idea where these kids came from. But this community has a lot to do with what happens to all of our kids. And, I can look around the room, and most of us are of the older generation, and the generation right behind us, we're watching them move in here every day. And all these young kids that are coming into the neighborhood, and I think it's great. But, we've got to help them and be what we can be from an HOA perspective to support them so that their kids can have the same kinds of opportunities. We got to promote and keep an eye on Lake Brantley High School, make sure that it gets up and stays up where it can be. Rock Lake's been an excellent school for decades. Same thing with Sable Point. So those are the kinds of things that come to my mind as a resident here. Now, as far as the HOA is concerned, I'm concerned, number one, about finances. We got ourselves into a bit of a mess organizationally here, more than a year ago, and through the hard work of Chuck and Tony and the rest of the board, that's turned around, and it's just about all resolved at this point. But we don't want to go back. So I'm a finance guy, and I want to keep a close eye on what goes on with finances. Where is this money now? Where is it going to be tomorrow? Are we paying attention to the run rate for everything from grass cutting to taking care of the tennis courts or whatever it may be? What are we really doing to keep an eye on our money? Because it's ours. It's no one else's. And it's for our use. But it's for our use from a very very tight perspective as far as I'm concerned. Now, I was in finance for 20 years in banking and banking technology. Went from there to public sector technology for 3 years out at Lake Mary. And then I was in higher education from 2000 up until my retirement. I worked at between 80 and 100 colleges and universities all over the country. Most recently, you know, I was an IT consultant. I served as a CIO at a number of colleges and universities around the country, did project management work, you name it. I was coming in on weekends and this lady would give me clean clothes and I cut her grass and cleaned her pool, and I'd go get on another plane and go somewhere else. Well, all that crap's over with now, and it's my turn to give back to the community. So that's why I'm doing this. Whether I'm successful or not, that's up to you all. But, you know, I'm just telling you, I'm just speaking straight to you. That's where I'm coming from. And those are the kinds of things I want to pay attention to. Make sure our amenities, everything else is what it needs to be. So with that, I'll pass it along to Randy. Oh,
You have one more minute.
reclaim my time. That's okay, I'll give it to Randy.
Our next candidate is Randy Rich. Go ahead, please.
Hello, everybody. My name is Randall Rich. I moved here in 91, up from the Boston area. And the reason we moved into Sweetwater was because we had some friends that had come and grown up actually in Wekiva Springs, and they had recommended this area as having really, really good schools. And of course, with 3 kids, we want to make sure they do well, so we selected the area. This is the second house we've lived in Sweetwater. We started on Sweetwater Boulevard South, and then I lived in California for a few months. We lived out there for a few months and then moved back. Didn't like California. The neighbors were a little bit too crazy for us. And we've been here ever since, so roughly 26, 27 years we've been here. I've heard a lot of issues, house repairs, I've seen dogs on the beach, there's a lot of things. What I want to do is I want to hear from the folks, the neighbors, what kind of problems, what do you see, what's your vision, what are you looking for? I spent 45 years in different industry, but mostly the IT industry, and my focus was solving problems. I get paid to solve problems. And that's kind of the reason I want to be here on the Sweetwater board, to try to help some of our neighbors here solve the problems that they're having. But first is I need to understand them. I've heard them, but I'm sure there's a lot more that you could probably share with us of things that we could do to make improvements. I've gone around the neighborhoods. I bike usually every day all over the place. There are houses that are in disrepair. Some of them need some work. You see dogs running free on occasion. You see trash barrels that the bears tips over pretty frequently, trash bags off. They used to steal my bags and take them into the woods on Sweetwater Island. And that'd be a bit of a hunt to find them. So I know there's certainly some issues and challenges there. I'd like to see pickleball courts added to the existing tennis courts, because that's becoming something that's very popular. It's easier for us older folks to play, than tennis. So good opportunity there. Also, as far as paying dues, that's another critical area that I think that we need to focus on. So, you know, collectively, what are your thoughts on that? What can we do better there? Same with improving the playgrounds, the look, the feel, and in general, increasing the property values of our homes. I think that's important. If we could affect the schools and things like that, I sure wish we could, but unfortunately, I think we only have control over our area and what we can do. So. I've never been on a homeowners association before, so I'm kind of new to it. So, but if elected, I will certainly make things happen. It's not my nature to sit back and listen. I do things. I'm a doer. I get it done. So, thanks. And I'll pass my time.
Next, I'd like to introduce our next candidate, Michael Richards. Ready?
Thanks, Stuart. My name's Michael Richards. My family moved here in 1984, and the sole reason we moved here was due to the schools. They weren't rated A, B, and C back then, but all the realtors said you need to live in Sweetwater Oaks, go to Sable Point, Rock Lake, and Lake Brantley. And I became involved when my children were little with the PTAs on all 3 schools, so I understood what was going on with them in the schools. I started a private investigative agency and insurance adjusting agency, which I've had for 30 years. And I'm still currently active in those areas. When I wasn't aware that we had a financial problem with Sweetwater Oaks when I moved here in '84. Leslie Farrell was a manager. We had a small little, like 20 by 20 office. It was pretty bad. but I was more focused on my children, my family. In 2014, I learned that we were $100,000 in arrears collecting assessments. And I was concerned about that, so I attended a board meeting. I was the only, Mason Kelsey and I were the only two people at the board meeting. So when they talked about these arrears, and I stand up and ask for detail, I was told to shut up and sit down. Well, that didn't go over so well. So I ran for the board. And I ran for the board with Artemis Mellon. There were 2 positions open. Previously, Chuck Scales was on and Rosalind Smith, and they had been elected the year before. So when Artemis and I were elected in 2014, we had a quorum of 4. So we were able to get a lot of changes done from the old board, which was very stoic and didn't want to accept any new ideas. I was made the treasurer, and I looked at our reserves. We had about $600,000, and they were all sitting in Merrill Lynch. And I said, why are they in Merrill Lynch? He said, well, because somebody knew somebody at Merrill Lynch. So I called Merrill Lynch, met with them, found out it was in a brokerage account that we were paying $300 for them to maintain our money. And so I got the board to start voting on CDs, and back that time they were like 0.8%, but they've gone up now to 2 and 3%. And so we've made $20,000 in the years that we have invested in CDs. I had a reserve study done, or asked the board to vote on a reserve study, because we hadn't had one done for 8 years, and that showed us where we needed to put the money to make the improvements, like the tennis courts that we just did last year for $200,000. So we were able to do a lot of things. I looked at irrigation. We irrigate everything down Wekiva Springs Road from 7-Eleven all the way towards the church, and we were using Utilities Inc. water. We had 4 wells. I looked at that, and what we did is we took our wells and interchanged that with Utilities Inc. cutting off their water and putting ours. We added a well earlier this year on Cutler. So we've cut in half our $2,500 a month utility bill down to about $1,250. Again, a monthly savings every month of that, what we can put towards reserves. We formed the Security and Safety Committee because we were having problems at the beach. We looked at the schedule for the deputies, and they were scheduling 4 hours every day of the week. Well, the county has deputies here regularly. What we needed is just to put them in areas and times where we had critical need, which was at the beach in the summer. So we had up to 3 shifts of 4 hours each to control the people that were there. We developed a trespass list with Esslinger, Sheriff Esslinger, so we could then trespass people who weren't on our property legally, and if they came back again, they would be arrested. And in the office right now, we've got about, 40 maybe, Pat, something like that. Got a good number of people that will be arrested if they come back. We've improved I don't know if you've seen, we've improved a lot of the islands. We've just voted on $7,200 to plant more trees where the dead ones have been taken out. We added a fountain we added lights on a fountain in Palm Lake and a fountain on Buttonwood. We improved the fountain on Sweetwater Bay. And of course, the tennis courts, $200,000 investment in that. What I plan to do, if reelected, I would like to see permanent bathrooms at both the beach and Riverbend Park. And I'm on the maintenance committee, so I can help with that plan and program. We have the money for it, and our auditors have already said, and our audit committee has already said we have the money. We've got $1.4 million in money and assets in this community, so we have the money. But granted, we had trouble last year with our in 2017 with our association manager. It's taken us 14 months to get our financials back in shape. Right now, we are at $170,000 with our collectibles, our receivables. One point, we were over $300,000 because we didn't have access to the records. And I kept pushing for that. Finally, she resigned. We got our records back in January 2018. And we're on track now to recover all that money. We set a program in place with sending out letters, notifying them, and we've got a plan in place with our attorney that if they're not going to pay, then they will get a lien. And then if we decide to foreclose, if the money's right, the board will decide to do that.
I'm going to cut you off, Michael.
Okay.
Okay. So with that, our next candidate to speak, let me reset my clock. Joanne Wade.
Hello. I don't know what to say after all that. I was born and raised about 25 miles north of here on a cattle ranch, on my granddaddy's cattle ranch in Lake Jim. And so I'm just an old country girl. I went to Mount Dora High School, and then I moved to Leesburg, and I went to Lake Sumter for a little while because I wanted to go into the medical field, but life changed, and I got a job at the telephone company instead, which was then Florida Telephone. Started out as a repair clerk and worked 4 to midnight, and then went to my classes, got up and went to my classes at the college from 8 to 3, and then on my 2 days off from working at the phone company, I taught secretarial office procedures to women that were in domestic violence situations and trying to get out and get a job. And so I taught them how to type and take notes and do all kinds of other stuff with that, of how to be a good secretary. And so then I worked my way up through the phone company because my mom was a single mom for the majority of my life and taught us a massive work ethic, all 3 of us kids. And all 3 of us kids work hard. And I worked myself up to upper management at the telephone company, which I retired from after 34 years with CenturyLink. And I was pretty proud of that because when I retired, I was actually holding 2 jobs, 2 separate jobs, and maintaining them across 38 states over the United States and all of our territories. So it was challenging, but I enjoyed it, and the knowledge base that I had, one of my coworkers, when they laid me off, because they were very upset, when they laid me off, he did a study, and it took 52 people to replace my knowledge. So that's like pretty cool. I was like, all right, yeah, hey, I'm smart. But yeah, I'm just a hard worker. That's the way it is. And then I moved here in 2001. I live at 300 Sweetwater Creek Court. And my backyard is right on McIva Springs Road. Back then, there wasn't as much traffic noise. Now there's a lot, but that's okay. I didn't move here for the schools, really, even though I've got 2 kids. My daughter, she'd already graduated high school. My son was just starting middle school, and I didn't even think about the schools. I just liked the neighborhood. I drove through it one day, and I was like, oh, this place is pretty. So I just started driving around, and then I saw a for sale sign. I was like, oh, yeah. So I went and went with my husband at the time, we bought the house. And so I've lived here ever since, and I've been on the board before. I've been on the maintenance committee for, I think, close to 2 years now. And got sidewalks put in at Riverbend that go from the paved road up to the pavilion, and from the paved road to the porta potty location for people that have trouble walking or that have scooters or wheelchairs or crutches or whatever, because all that was there was on gravel rock to go to the pavilion or grass, and then just grass and dirt to go to the porta potties. And that's difficult to go to use a motorized scooter or any kind of wheelchair or anything like that to get to those 2 places. And I fish a lot, which is why I have a really good tan. So you'll probably see my car around all over the place. It's the gold Honda CRV with the FSU big thing on the back. Go Knowles. So, but my plan is to do good things for this company. I'm on Facebook all the time. That's just my deal. I'm just like, that's how I get my news. I'm on Facebook. And there was a lady that had posted about tree limbs that were overhanging that were a danger to her kids playing out in the area. So I called up our maintenance guys and asked them to ride over there, because she didn't know if it was common area or county or a neighbor owned the trees. and it was common area. And so they trimmed the tree limbs, made it safe that day. It was done. I was like, that's cool. One of the other things too that I really want to do is have a private Facebook page just for Sweetwater Oaks residents. Tony already has one set up that's sent out, but you can't, there's no comments unless he opens it up for certain specific reasons. You can't just do comments. I want one that y'all can go to, make whatever comments you want to make. If you want to complain, if you want to, say something nice, whatever you want to do, you can do it on this page without having Sable Point people know what our business is, Wekiva knowing what our business is, the Springs down there knowing what our business is, because it's none of their business what we do in our HOA. This is our HOA. This is our community, not theirs. So I want a private group like that. That's one of my things. That and getting new playground equipment for Riverbend too, because it's desperate.
Thank you. Thank you all for that. Open for questions, Angela's got the mic. But before we start with questions, let me say that unfortunately, of these five people, only two of them are elected to the board, unless of course there is the opportunity to write in. But in all likelihood, is two of them are going to be on the board. I've had a chance to at least meet all five of them. I've gotten to know some of the others better than others, but not that any of them are going to name me in their will. I'm not that close to them. But,
I will if I'm elected.
What?
I will if I'm elected.
Man, those campaign promises.
I don't have anything but fish, so.
But I can tell you, with what I know of them, we will be well served with any combination of two that we get. Either they have professional or personal experiences that they can bring real value to the board. They all have, my interaction with them, they all have the right temperament and openness to be, I think, very good members of our board. We have an excellent slate of candidates this year, and I'm so pleased to be, and I'll have all five of you guys having volunteered to put yourselves on the line like this. That being said, we're going to open the floor to questions. Again, I'm going to ask that you try to keep your questions broad enough that we can get quickie answers from all five candidates. Let's not try to get into your specific issues that are not broadly applicable to the needs of the homeowners association. And with that, if I show hands first, we'll go here and then we'll go here. Put the mic close to your mouth.
Hi, my name is Shirley Johnson. I live on Lonesome Pine. I moved to this neighborhood because it was deed restricted. I lived in a wonderful home in Altamont Springs, and it was just, seriously, it was going downhill fast, and we knew we had to get out. I've lived here for 4 years, and while this is still a beautiful neighborhood, I have seen the deterioration. I was actually part of a group who was opposed to drive around identifying properties that were in disarray, and I am now opposed to my opposition. What I'm asking of the five of you is, right now we have a program where residents can complain about their neighbor or drive down the street, but that's basically the only people we have identifying properties. So what do you think is a better solution than what we have going right now to identifying the properties that are not keeping up with the covenants?
So it's not to make Terry always be first. I'll just randomly start with Randy and
Sure.
Okay.
go that way.
Yeah, I think maybe we hold some kind of, everybody in the community gets together and what can we do to help that person get their property back in place? Like when the kids go clean out the lakes and the rivers and stuff like that. That could be one way to try to tackle it. Because yeah, in my neighborhood, we've got a place that's like that. There's a homeowner that just doesn't take care of it. So whether it's a financial issue, a personal issue, preference, who knows? But maybe it's something we could look at from a different angle that wouldn't be threatening, yet come off as we're trying to be a community, we're trying to help, we're trying to all collectively make the place better.
Michael.
The current committee that Angela Violante heads goes out and looks at the complaints that are given by the homeowners. And what they've done recently is kind of escalated that by, when they go out, they look at other places. Because if you have to leave from one place to get to another place, you might see other potential violations. So what she's doing is trying to expand that and then cover more ground that way, instead of just focusing on that one single complaint. Is it, and I don't know if that's working, Angela, is that?
That is working, but again, as Stuart said, we need all the volunteers we can get, because the more bodies we have doing this job, the better the properties are going to look.
Somebody dropped off a complaint last week or 2 weeks ago that had, what, 20 properties? So it keeps that committee busy.
Okay, Joanne, comments?
And one aspect I do definitely agree with Randy, because kids, and this is what I was telling Linda and Stan earlier, because they were asking me about pulling weeds. And today, in today's world, the children, the high schoolers, they have to have community service in order to graduate. That's a requirement of graduation. And if we can get these kids in this neighborhood, if they will work, that's part of the thing, to go out and help our neighbors that need help, to pull weeds, to mow, to do whatever needs to be done to help them clean up their yard, that would be awesome. That would be great. And they would earn their community service in that manner. They would have the paperwork from the school, and all the homeowner would have to do, pretty much from what I recall, my son's been graduated for quite a while now, but the homeowner would sign it saying that they completed this amount of hours for this community service. So that is an ideal situation for everyone all around.
Okay, number one, when we had Sherry Hill on the board, we did have a committee that was helping neighbors helping neighbors. And I think that we should reinstate that kind of thing, and maybe the high school helping out with their hours. I also have been on the CRC committee, and when we had the old management company, letters went out to violators that were really mean and rude, and we had a lot of problems with that. So being part of the CRC committee, I wanted to make sure that we were able to let people know they were in violation, but when they did fix the problem, to send them a thank you letter, to let them know that we appreciated it. Also take into account when we're evaluating on the CRC committee, what their financial needs were they elderly and weren't able to take care of their yard. You take those things into account when you're assessing these reports, these complaints. I also do think we need to reinstate, which we had a long time ago, but in a kinder way, a committee to go around and identify people in violation, because on the AHC committee, we have people who say that we are just pinpointing them and ignoring other people. I think that we need to, I don't know that we're doing that, but I think we need to cover the whole community and not just certain people that neighbors complain about.
Well, as far as the community service thing is concerned, that's extremely important. Both our kids served in all kinds of organizations when they were growing up. And quite frankly, they learn a whole lot about the world around them when they get out and get organized, get their hands dirty. So I'm all in favor of something like that. And they need that when they apply for college. You can't just get into college, based on your GPA. You have to have community. They're looking for well-rounded students.
We have to be approved.
Yeah, well, I understand that. So that's a road we would have to go down to gain approval to be an organization that they could in turn work for. I understand that part. But that's what's meaningful. And the other thing is, a lot of people are afraid of, raising their hand and saying, oh, Sally's yard's a mess or whatever. You can do this anonymously, and we don't promote the fact that you can do this anonymously. And we need to do that. We need to make sure that all of our residents know that it's okay, to pick up the phone or to do an anonymous complaint. I hate to use the word complaint, but quite frankly, that's what it is. To point out something that needs attention. Now I'll also tell you, I've spent almost $35,000 on my house so far this year with a roof, electrical upgrades, and if you came to my house right now, I guarantee you'd find something that is not going to be up to snuff. So we got to. There's a little common ground here too that we've got to be sensitive to. So I don't know exactly how we balance that, but I'm sorry, every damn house in this subdivision is going to have some kind of a violation if you stand around and stare at it long enough. There's going to be a cracked sidewalk, there's going to be a cracked driveway, there's going to be some mold on the roof on the back side that I can see from the other street over. I mean, there's going to be something, so we've got to be reasonable about this and attack the real problems first.
Well,
That's where I'm coming from.
the good news is that two of you are going to get on the board, and you get to wrestle with this issue. We're not going to just debate it tonight, but we are going, we know it's going to come before the board. Have fun with that. With that, by the way, the rate we're going, we'll be able to take 6 more questions, and we try to keep all, okay? No, man, you just. Hold it up to you now, please.
Lee Constantine was here sometime last year, and he talked about the, if an entire community went into the bear business, that we could get a, I just wondered what everybody's feeling was regarding the, bear safe garbage cans.
Okay, well, I guess I'm being biased, but I'll let
Yeah.
Terry go first.
Okay.
That's our agenda item.
Well, it's not my only agenda item, but I have been a very strong supporter and really worked hard. I was, on our committee, was responsible for getting Lee Constantine here and getting all that going. I know that the state of Florida has not awarded the same monies that they did before for bear-resistant cans, because Lee Constantine was offering us cans at $43 a can, and we were wanting the board to buy them for every home that would stay with the home, so it would become part of that resident. So I still want to keep working on that. There are going to be other options available. I think it's important for our children and for the other adults in our community that we don't want to risk somebody getting hurt before we do something. And also for the wildlife itself, to keep it safe.
I don't know enough about the topic to, talk about it a whole lot other than what Terry's already said, but I'll tell you my personal experience. I've been here since 1994, and I've never had a problem. But my butt is up at 6 a.m. on Monday, taking that stuff out to the street, and it used to be on my way to the airport, in most cases. And in all these years, I've never had a problem. We live over on Valley Circle, and we have bears cruising through occasionally, but the only problem I've ever had in all these years was one got spooked in my backyard and took out part of my fence on the way out. That's been it in all these years.
Yes, I
And I'm like, I don't want to get up at 5 in the morning and take the cans out, and we have bears in our neighborhood all the time, and they get into the trash and they cause all kind of problems. They've been seen sleeping on the hammocks in people's back in their pools.
Swimming in their pools,
Go
yeah.
right, I've had them go right through my fence and my pool, one in one side, out the other side. They go after grills. So that's probably what I should do too. So yeah, I agree, and I think it would help immensely if we can do something about the cans. So good work on that.
Thank you.
Well, the board has wrestled with that. I didn't mean that as a pun, but we've tried to look at that program. The problem is the expense right now. We're in the middle of an audit. I said earlier, we had a reserve study in 2015. We're having another reserve study done in June. So we'll have an idea of where our monies needs to go. Because we're talking, what, Terry, $40,000 or $50,000?
Yeah, it would be about that, about
Yeah.
58,000, I think.
So I sat next to Lee Constantine when we had that meeting, and he mentioned that there may be a decrease from that $43 in the future if he can get other funding. So I think right now it might be prudent to let the reserve study go.
We're still working on all options.
I'm sorry?
We're still working on all options.
Okay, and see how the Seminole County ordinance that they put into effect, not to take the garbage out until 6 a.m. to prevent the bears from coming through the garbage. So the board, if I get reelected, we're going to continue to look at that, especially because we do have the money. One of the other problems is if it stays with the house, somebody has to monitor that if that house gets sold, that bear can stays there. And we don't have anything in place to really patrol that.
I have mixed emotions on this issue. When I was working, I would get up because my husband had retired already, so I would get up and go take the trash out at 5:30 in the morning, and I met a family of bears that was getting in my trash right in front of me. And I'm trying out there to scare them off, and it didn't work. So then I had to clean up the mess, and I was late for work. At this point in time, my neighbor, she has a bear-proof trash can, and she graciously shares it with us. And in return, my husband or myself take it back to, she's got a long driveway, so we take it back to her driveway, so she doesn't have to do that because she works, and so we're just being helpful to her and thankful for her for doing that. The bear-proof trash can does work. We've sat there and, because, I heard this big old noise outside and looked out the window, and we watched this bear pounce. He knocked the trash can over and just pounced on that for a good 20 minutes, trying to get into that trash can and could not do it. There was no way. And then his mom, and he was like a teenage bear, and then his mama came along and was like, come on, dude, let's go. So, they went on their merry way. So I think they're good. But I also do, my mixed emotions part is there are parts of this neighborhood that the bears don't travel in. But these bears have certain pathways of where they're going to. And there's parts of this neighborhood that there is no bear traffic. So those people,
Where they're going now.
yeah.
This could be a debate, but they will go to other places in the neighborhood if they don't find food.
Oh, yeah.
No.
We have another question. In the back.
Yeah, my name is Jen. I live on South Two Boulevard. I'm on there, it's on Fox Valley Drive. My dad was the president of the HOA, please don't hold that against me. What I wanted to ask is there's been a lot of talk about making Sweetwater Beach as well as Riverbend more attractive, including permanent restrooms. If you were at the beach this weekend, you know that it doesn't need anything to make it more attractive to a lot of people that do not live in this neighborhood, including a woman that we met who was in town from Miami, and Google Beaches near me, and Sweetwater Beach came up, so she was spending the day there, including another family that doesn't live there with dogs. So obviously we know that there's, and I'm glad to hear that we do have trespassing lists and things like that. So before we look at giving more people a reason to come, including the new development that's being built across the lake that has boat access but no beach of its own, what are we doing to make sure that these folks are not using our beach, including signage which you cannot see anything when you're entering the beach from the lake?
We're gonna, Randy, you want to start? Didn't you start last time?
Yeah.
Yes, we'll start with Michael then.
Well, we did develop that trespass list for that very reason and post signs, but we really have to have deputies down there. And they really have to be not sitting in their air-conditioned vehicle. They need to walk around, and maybe we need even more shifts down there, especially this summer. I know we increased them in this month when school got out, but that's really the only deterrent, that they can go around and actually ask the people for IDs. We've had this problem for a long time, and I don't see any other, we can't chain it off. We can't put locks on it. People find a way to get in. We just need, I believe we need enforcement. The price of the deputies and their cars went up last year, but I think it's for our benefit to have more deputies down there.
No follow-up. You can follow up after we let the panel a chance to respond to this.
I completely agree with Michael. I think that's the only option that we have, because we don't own the waterway. The St. John's or whoever, they own the waterway, we don't. So they can bring their boat up, as long as it's in the water, they're fine. And the minute they step out on our beach, that's a different story. Now they're trespassing. So if we have deputies down there that are sitting down there watching this, they can fine them, or if they get unruly, then arrest them for trespassing. But that's pretty much the only option that we have, because we don't have a gate for people coming in off the roadway to stop them from coming in there. There's no way to stop them.
Okay, I think it's great that the deputies are down there, and I hope that they are doing what we are paying them to do. But I think that we have not had identification tags for Sweetwater residents in a while. And I understand that people don't want to put stickers on, and my idea is to, like you have the handicap sign that you put on your rearview mirror, if we had something removable, because there are people who have their friends bring a boat, and as long as you're with a Sweetwater resident, you should be able to do that. But they could put the tag on their boat, then people who are on the beach can see whether somebody comes up with a tag or not. If they don't, then they could go alert the deputy. Some people don't go to the beach with their ID, so they're not going to be able to show you their ID. I just think that we need to be responsible too, the community members, when we're at the beach, we also need to be responsible for identifying people who don't belong there. And we are paying for those amenities, they need to be protected.
Well, I've owned boats since I got out of college, and our kids grew up on Lake Brownlee. That's where they learned how to wakeboard, ski, kneeboard, you name it. They learned everything on that lake. And Mom and Dad put up with that crap on the weekends, trying to go down there and use our lake, and I can't even get to the beach sometimes because of all the boats that are there, that most of which, are not Sweetwater residents, because I knew, we were down there all the time, so we knew who the Sweetwater residents were. And that was a hair yanker for years for us. I mean, it got to the point, we joined the Orange County Sportsman's Club down on the Butler chain, and we started going down there, more often than here for a number of years, but then we, finally, the kids were getting into organized sports, volleyball and lacrosse and what have you. So we let that go and started using the beach again. It's the same old story, nothing had changed. Hang tags won't work for this reason. If you're on a boat and it's windy, that tag is going to end up in the lake. It's not going to stay on the boat. But some kind of identification is appropriate. I agree with that. But it's going to take police down there. The only time we ever had luck, I remember one weekend specifically, there was a lady cop down there, and she was out on the beach itself with her clipboard, and she was asking for ID, and she was in people's faces politely, and she was running them off left and right, daring them to come back. I mean, it was a thing of beauty to watch, but that was the only time in all those years that I really had a day down there that I can remember that was, halfway pleasant, because the police were there, keeping that beach for my use and not the rest of the country.
Yeah, certainly the police is one way. The other way is install some more security cameras. Maybe we can catch some repeat offenders, and at least you've got proof, evidence, you can share it with the police. I've asked people with dogs to leave the beach, and they give you dirty looks. They give you dirty looks. So give me a picture of them. We'll take it to the police and have them.
I can assure you folks that there's board members here who would love to comment, but this is not the forum to do that, because we all have our opinions about that. It's, again, another topic you guys will get to enjoy addressing in board meetings. Who's next? Gentleman over here.
Gary Odak, Sweetwater Boulevard. And I'd like to add to what this young lady said over here. I've been to Sweetwater Beach at least 10 times this year. I was there Saturday from 10:30 till 4, and on Sunday from noon till 5. There were a couple of police officers that showed up. None of them got out of their car. Let me repeat it. None of them ever got out of their car. This guy is right. There was a woman a couple of years ago who would walk around, she had curly hair, and I'm not saying to be mean and disruptive, but I think if the officers would get up and walk, just at least walk once in a while, they might scare off some people. Number two, we do have green stickers that I have on my jet skis, that I have on my trailer. When I get to the trailer park, normally the Orange County cars, I look at the license plate, they're already there. So the Orange County people have figured out, if we go there early enough, there's no cops to bother them, because they never get out of the car. So they've already got the spots. Number two,
Do you have a question, sir? Because I don't.
Those are all questions.
What is?
I think they're all questions.
Would you be kind enough to ask a question? Because we appreciate your opinion. We do recognize it as an issue. They would love to address it, but what specifically do you have an inquiry about?
I'll make one more comment and I'll ask my question. Is when I was there 2 to 3 weeks ago, I got talking to some people, and they told me that the people from Okaiwa Island said that they were busy, and the closest beach was Sweetwater Beach, where we live. That's what they were told. But I would like to know, I don't know if we're hiring the cops, or what the deal is with that. But are they supposed to get out of their vehicle and look in the trailer parking lot for the green stickers on the trailers and the boats? Half of the boats have the green stickers and half of them do not. And somebody also said there is a new community that opened up, and they're beautiful boats and trailers, beautiful boats and jet skis, are all coming over to Sweetwater. Because they have no beach.
Yes, sir.
That's my question.
And that question will be answered. I'd ask that Mr. Mialotti add to our agenda at the next board meeting, that we have a discussion regarding that, but that is not something that they're not decision makers at this point. They will be in June, and you're certainly welcome to ask that question of the board. These are candidates for the board, and they have expressed their opinion as to what we should do. So, another question? Yes, ma'am. I don't mean to put you off, sir, but that's not a question for the candidates.
Okay, I have 2 questions for the candidates. One, do any of the candidates have a vote that ever go down to the dock? Some of them said they heard. How many of you do actually use?
I do not.
Beach?
I do not.
Well, and the other thing is there, do any of you know a way to get Sweetwater Beach off of Google so that it doesn't pop up when you Google nearby beaches? Sweetwater comes right up. And that's what happened this weekend when I was there. Somebody just couldn't get into another beach and Google and came right over. That was the person from Miami I talked to.
Okay, so I guess the first question is, go down the line. Any votes?
I do not.
9 more.
Well, I still have one, but it's too big for Lake Brantley.
I do
Then
not.
all of us get to go on the vote. We'll have this meet. We'll move it to that.
Bring a little gas money, we can do anything.
Yeah,
Okay, votes?
no.
Okay, and the other part of the question was,
As far as getting something off of Google, that's a little difficult to do.
how do you do a reverse SEO?
Yeah.
That might be something to talk to the county about, the county. I think that the county, maybe if we called the people at the county and asked them if that's a possibility, that's the only way I could figure
It
out.
is, it is private property.
Yeah.
So but I think that is, again, a board meeting thing.
Yeah.
Why don't we have time for one last question? Is there anybody, gentleman in the back right there?
Tom does.
Last question. Here.
Last question. People inside and outside the organization, the community like to use Riverbend, Sweetwater South, Sweetwater North, Fox Valley is their own personal autobahns. What are your thoughts about getting people to slow down?
We're going to start with Joanne. You're I think the only one that didn't get to go first yet.
Oh, goody. I'm not exactly sure what happened in the past, but I do know that there were reasons, I don't know what they exactly were, Chuck, you might can help out on that, that we were not allowed to put in speed bumps on our roads, on these roads. We weren't allowed, your county roads, so we can't put in speed bumps or even speed humps to slow people down. My suggestion, to me, and it's just would be common sense, is to put in a whole bunch of stop signs at every intersection. Put in a stop sign, 4-way stop. People have to stop for the stop sign, so they're gonna, that will slow them down.
Okay, Terry, your comment?
Okay, I had said that I would be willing to work with the county on this, because there are communities like Sable Point and the one down near Woodlands Elementary, Woodlands. They have speed bumps, and so I have a lot of questions for the county about that. I think enlarged speed signs. I've also thought when I'm walking, I could carry a 20-mile-an-hour sign and hold it out. I've also seen over Woodlands area, they have flashing, they have the solar-powered flashing lights on their stop signs. And I thought about that for our wildlife signs, but also that could be speed signs if there's some way we could do the solar-powered and have them flashing or something, I don't know. So there's just some thoughts.
Michael?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's out of our hands to a certain extent because it is county streets. and we rely on the Seminole County Sheriff's Department, you know, to police those streets. So it's me, I pick up and I call the non-emergency number and complain about it. I got a guy down on Valley Court, which is right below Valley Circle where I live, and he comes flying up the street. He doesn't stop for his stop sign, coming on the Valley Circle, and goes screaming past my house. Now, my kids are grown and gone, but across the street from me, they're like this, 2 of them over there, you know, and I'm a little concerned for their welfare. So, you know, seeing that kind of stuff going on, you know, I'm gritting my teeth, and I'm just about ready to make that phone call now. I've had just about enough of this guy. And quite frankly, I think we all need to start picking up the phone. The more complaints the county gets about a problem, they're going to address it. They don't have the manpower to sit there on the phone and take calls all day long from residents that are hacked off about something. So, you know, by all means, pick the damn phone up and call the people that can really help us. The HOA can't do it. It's not our jurisdiction, I guess is the easiest way to say it. But we can sure, you know, be right there with you complaining about it.
Yeah, I mean, I bike all over the place, especially Riverbend, and they come 40 miles an hour. So, you know, the only way to catch them, put stuff in the newsletter, and also make calls to the police, have the sheriff. He used to be there a lot years ago and catch them, and I haven't seen them in a long time. He'd be in an unmarked car. He's got like a Toyota or a Honda, and you see him once in a great while, so maybe more frequent. Let's call.
Okay, Michael?
Yeah, the board addressed that because a number of members have complained about speed, especially on Riverbend. So we got with the deputies, and they were doing speed enforcement with the radar guns, but they were giving out warnings, and they weren't giving out citations. I think it's imperative that the board have a meeting with the deputies and tell them the problems that we're having, and tell the county, the sheriff's office, the problems, because on-duty deputies can do that same speed enforcement without us having to pay deputies. So we need to address that and issues at the beach with the Seminole County Sheriff's Office.
What we're gonna do, one last thing, I didn't prep the panel for this. No more questions at this time. Thank you for your engagement. I think it's important. I'm glad that everybody was able to hear the responses from all the candidates, but we're gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna give each candidate 1 minute. I'm gonna hold you to it. If you wanna do a summary and your little campaign speech, to solicit your votes. Their votes. I voted already.
Okay, I am a real team player and a real go-getter. I will listen to what the residents have to say. It's more important that that's what we're being elected for, is to represent the community and the people who live in the community. And I am a fighter. I am outspoken, and I will do the work, the legwork to get things done.
Thank you. Mike?
As I mentioned earlier, I'm about fiscal responsibility first and foremost. You know, watching after our money, where it's going and where it's been is critical, and what's gone on in the past can't happen again. Something else I'm adamantly opposed to is outsourcing. And I say that because I was an outsourcer myself for decades in banking, in public sector, and in higher education. I was an outsourcer. I know what outsourcers do to customers. We don't want to be the customer of any outsourcing organization, HERA or anybody else along that line. So I'm adamantly opposed to that. If you don't like that, you need to take your vote somewhere else, because I'm going to stand up on the table and scream over that one if it ever comes up.
Okay, Randy?
As a problem solver, whatever it happens to be, whatever the collective thought happens to be, is to go out and get it done. You know, not just sit and talk about it. Let's find out what we need to do, who do we need to get involved, and that's what I'll do. I don't stop. I'll go to no ends or no means to complete it.
Okay, thank you. Michael?
Well, I agree with Mike. We had 2 management companies, Century and then HERA, and right now we have a better understanding of our financials. We had members that weren't being assessed that we found out about. And so I agree, I will not go back to a management company. We have got an excellent staff with Pat as our CAM, Michelle we hired as administrative assistant, and the 2 maintenance guys are, you heard, they respond instantly to any problem we have. Right now, the staff is the best that I've ever seen here at Sweetwater Oaks.
Thank you. And Joanne?
And I agree with that also. I think Pat does a wonderful job, and our HOA is in the best shape that it's ever been. I'm a person that has a lot of common sense and a lot of street smarts, and that's how I get things done. I just do it. And if I have to do the work myself, I'm a hard worker. I may be old, but I'll go out there and do it, you know? I get sweaty all the time, so it doesn't matter to me. Most of the time, I was telling Debbie earlier, most of the time I look like a homeless person because I'm out there fishing and sweating like crazy. So, but that's, you know, I hope you vote for me. And I would just, you know, appreciate trying to help get things done. I mean, once we get the budget done right, then bathrooms are first on the list, because that's what we've been talking about on the maintenance committee for a long time now.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you to our candidates. Thank you for coming. I do encourage everybody
We get to take these things on.
to vote. I know that those of you who are here will be voting. Traditionally, we only get about a 20-22% vote response to this. I'm going to ask each of you to be an ambassador of the election nomination committee and encourage your neighbors to vote and to become engaged in this. It is about the future of our HOA. We have 5 excellent candidates, 5 people, any two of whom we will be honored to have on our board of directors here at Sweetwater Road. Thank you very much for your evening. And look at this, we're going to actually get done 5 minutes early. Have a good evening.
Thank you.